Hi, I'm Lynn Langit, and this is a preview of a talk I'm going to be giving at SQL Saturday in March and also online called NoSQL for the DBA. So to get us started thinking, let's think about the current state of data that we all have in our transactional systems. It really captures history and transactional information. And sort of the key word here when you're looking at the slide is we're able to answer what happened. So why change? Isn't this good enough? Why is there all this talk about big data and NoSQL? What I see driving this is the inclusion of exponentially more data. And the data I characterize as behavioral. And if you look at the questions on the slide here, it's not just what did happen, but it allows you to think about what might have happened. And I like to use a retail example. Transactional data is things I actually purchased. Behavioral data would be places I visited, whether online or actually physically. So online would be traffic through a website, an e-commerce website. Physically would be capturing location data as I walk through a mall. So by capturing this data and analyzing it, which would be, of course, exponentially more than my transactions, this could give retailers the ability to have a competitive advantage. So what does this look like, and why can't we just do this with our relational systems? This comes to the CAP theorem, the consistency, availability, and partitioning tolerance. And basically it says that database systems can have 2 out of the 3. So traditional RDBMSs are strong in terms of consistency and availability. However, they start to fall down at huge scale because of partitioning and limits with partitioning. So we run into limits for writing in terms of scaling and for speed. Also in terms of availability for reads. I'm going to talk a lot more detail about this in my talk. Now the first area I'm going to talk about is sort of the hype factor, which isn't NoSQL just Hadoop. In my talk I'm going to get into all the different types of NoSQL flavors, but just to give you a sense of what I'm going to talk about and what I'm going to show is I'm going to show little demos of the different systems. So I'll start with Amazon's implementation. So on AWS we've got hosted Hadoop. We can have Hadoop in many different ways. So probably the simplest way to have access is to access MapReduce and to process information out of an S3 bucket. So their documentation is pretty good, and all the notes will be in my slides on how to do this. And just to show you, if you want to start playing around, this would be the page you'd start with, Hadoop and MapReduce. And then inside of Amazon, I've got a couple of jobs here. So you just go to the console, and you'd go to Elastic MapReduce, as it says here, Manage Hadoop Framework, after you've set up your account. And then inside of here, you would have different job flows. So I'll just run through the wizard to create a quick sample job flow called job flow 2. And I'm going to run a sample, and I'm going to run a word count. And then what this is going to do is do a mapper and a reducer against a bucket. And my bucket just has some text files in it. So this is an S3 bucket. And this is a Python job that will, in this case, split the words, and then the reducer will count the words. And then I specify the instances I want to run it on, and then if I want any key pairs or advanced logging, which you may want, obviously, and then anything else, and then I just go ahead and click OK. And then I say close, and I've got a job flow. You can debug through. This one I set up incorrectly on purpose. Now this one is just sort of an obvious error, but just to show you, you got the wrong case on the name. So there are many other implementations. Cloudera, of course, is a premier value-add vendor. Microsoft has an implementation here that's in a closed beta. So Hadoop on Azure, setting up an account here, and very similar in terms of the samples. Looks like my allocation is still going. There it goes. So there I've got my cluster, and there I've got my samples, and I can click in and I can work with, again, a word count sample. Looks very similar to the Amazon. I can deploy to my cluster. Anyway, so I hope you'll join me for the full series. It'll be about an hour to 2 hour talk. So NoSQL for the DBA. Thank you.